Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today in this Vertica webinar. We will be talking about the launch of the Vertica 10 and Vertica 10 as the unified analytics warehouse. My name is Fouad Tiban, and I will be your host today. I'm leading the Vertica field engineering team here in EMEA. And our team consists of Vertica technical specialists, data scientists, and system engineers. And our daily job is to help customers and partners in their data analytics projects, which could be building a greenfield and modern data analytics platform, could be migrating from any other data warehouse to Vertica on-prem, on cloud, or hybrid, or building and augmenting data lakes. We love to work with our customers on cool stuff. So if you have any interesting project or you feel Vertica is a good fit after you follow this webinar, or you want to just start a quick POC on AWS, GCP, or Azure, or on-prem, just let me know and we will be happy to help you. I am pleased to welcome our presenters today, so Jeff Healy and Mark Lyons. Jeff is our senior director, and he leads our Vertica marketing group. Mark Lyons is the director of Vertica product management. So I welcome you, Jeff and Mark. And just before we start, I would like to encourage you guys to submit your questions and comments on the box, question box that is below the slide. And of course, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and we will try to answer as much as we can today. So this webinar also will be recorded and will be available on demand together with the slides. With this, Jeff, I hand over to you.
Thanks so much, Fouad, and thank you everyone for joining, taking the time to spend a little bit of time with us today to learn about Vertica 10. But before we get into, I'm going to provide a quick overview of Vertica, and hand it off to Mark. I want to cover this confidential information disclaimer. The reason why we're including this, we don't include this in a lot of our webcasts. We include it in the webcast where we're going to show you a glimpse into the future. So we're not just going to cover Vertica 10, although there's a lot in there that you'll certainly grab your attention, but also a little bit about the glimpse into the future. These aren't, there are no dates or anything like that with the roadmap. But Mark is going to show you the direction of where we're taking what we're calling our unified analytics warehouse. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But at the beginning of every webcast that we do, particularly under the hood webcasts, we want to give a little bit of an overview on Vertica. We understand there's a lot of customers that have joined, and thank you for your business, and a lot of future customers. So we're in a very competitive space, so it's really important to define and articulate our value proposition. What does Vertica do that's different than everyone else that's out in the industry? Well, Vertica's unified analytics warehouse. You heard Fouad mention that, at the beginning here as part of the overview. Next slide, I'm going to talk about what that actually means. Right. But if you look at any of the case studies on Vertica.com, you meet with any of our customers, Vertica is primarily chosen for scale and speed. Right. So if you have analytical use cases that include everything from fraud detection to risk management and banking to predictive maintenance within IoT, which is becoming really a mega trend within IoT analytics, chances are you're going to need an analytical warehouse. Right. So what is an analytical warehouse? Why is it unified with Vertica? Well, Vertica is three things, right? We get all the time, customers will ask, well, what's the data based on? Is it, what's the file format? Is it based on Hadoop? No, Vertica is a SQL database. It's all anti-SQL compliant. And just like with any SQL database, and it's a relational database, you can load and store data, very large volumes of data. We have many customers that store petabyte volumes in Vertica. We've disrupted the traditional enterprise data warehouse market, and we've done that because we deliver blazingly fast analytics. So queries that take hours in a traditional enterprise data warehouse can take minutes, or in some other data store, it can take minutes, can take seconds. Very, very fast query performance. That's kind of the signature underpinnings of Vertica. It's also an analytics and machine learning platform, and I think what you'll see out of Vertica 10, some of the biggest advancements we've done around in-database machine learning, and Fouad is also going to cover a really, really interesting set of APIs that we've brought to market in an open source way. So a lot of advancements around reaching out to data scientists, whether you want to take a full SQL approach or you want to use the tools that you love, of course, with Python and Spark and R and being able to integrate with that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But the important thing to understand around Vertica's and database machine learning approach is that you can cover every step of the predictive analytics process. So that's creating, training, deploying advanced analytics and machine learning models at scale, no downsampling. And the third thing Vertica is a query engine. So there are a lot of query engines out there, whether you look at more of the open source environments or, from Vertica and others. And the whole idea here is that when we speak with organizations, they say, okay, please don't give me another vendor pitch where you say store all your data in your database. That's not going to happen. We've got a very complicated, very intricate architecture. And if you can bring a tool to bear where we can analyze data in place, we'll have a conversation. We don't want to copy and move the data. That takes time, that takes resources, it's expensive. We don't want to do it. Very flexible platform that brings all of these three different kind of alternative ways to be able to analyze your data in place in a very performant way. Now, what I want to talk a little bit about is the unified analytics warehouse, right? You heard me mention it a couple of times. What do we mean by that? Well, we speak with a lot of our customers and we look at their architectures, and I'd say the majority of them use both a data warehouse and some sort of a data lake. And what we're seeing in the industry is there's a convergence going on between the data warehouse and the data lake. Many of the kind of traditional data warehouse vendors are taking it from the side of, hey, they handle mixed workload management well, or they've done concurrency really well. And then on the other side, you have a lot of the primarily HDFS vendors that have evolved beyond that because, frankly, HDFS has not lived up to the promise of being able to do everything that a data warehouse has done. But together, they have incredible strength and incredible synergy, right? So what we're saying is that if you look at the left part of the slide, lots and lots of data is growing, of course, right? Because we're in the big data industry. Everything from click streams to logs to sensor data from IoT to geolocation and things like that. There's batch data, there's transactional data. And there are these two primary data stores, whether that's an analytical warehouse or a data lake that can store it very neatly, and some can do it better than others. You can stream the data in, being able to support things like Kafka or Amazon Kinesis to be able to do micro-batch loading in near real time. That's super important. Or you can do batch ETL using a lot of ETL tools or using Spark. As you can tell from this message here, it's including both on the open source side and then also on the analytical warehouse side. Or you could do ELT, being able to load data in Vertica to do data preparation, right within the database, and there's a lot of advantages to that. But the bottom line is that it's really not about the data, it's about unifying the analytics, right? So if you have a vendor that comes to you and says, hey, we've got a new approach and load all your data in our database, what I would say is really, really consider your options there, right? We understand you have very complicated architectures and data pipelines, so you want to be able to bring a tool in to supplement that pipeline and not just rip and replace. It's going to cost you time and money, and it's going to be disruptive. So if you look at the right side of the slide, what's the most important thing is your data consumers. Who are you supporting? You're supporting your data analysts, which may be the traditional BI workloads, right? And you want to make sure that they can access the data in a very performant way. How can they do that? Well, this unified analytics warehouse architecture is based on a separation compute and storage architecture. So you can spin compute and storage up separately and independently for seasonal workloads and for variable workloads. Very important to those data analysts. But to date, the data scientist community has been mostly working with those open source environments, which they love, R and Python, and they're great technologies. The challenge is that you're downsampling the data, which could lead to inaccurate models, inaccurate, actually, results. So with Vertica's approach in supporting PMML, and Mark is going to talk about that, now what you're able to do is use those tools that you love, build the models in R and Python, but when you want to score them and you want to train them for the accuracy on the full corpus of data, you can do that now. That's really the game changer. And the other thing is if you want to take a complete SQL-based approach, if you're a data engineer, you can also do data science within the database. Or you can take your models you built in Vertica and export them using technologies like TensorFlow on the edge for GPUs. It's a very, very flexible environment. Deployment models should absolutely not matter, whether you're storing data in Hadoop or you're storing data on the cloud in S3, or you're storing data on premises in S3. We support pure storage and a lot of data formats in every deployment model, and particularly we're seeing more in hybrid. So that's the unified analytics warehouse. And to learn more about what we're seeing and what this particular analyst, EMA, is seeing, check out this white paper. very interested, regardless of the technology you choose. Obviously, we know that we have the best analytical warehouse out there, particularly around performance at scale, but we understand that it's one tool for the job, and it needs to work within an ecosystem. Excuse me. The other update that I want to provide is around, I provide Vertica news updates, and this is something we're awfully proud of. And we earned the top leadership position in GigaOm's radar for evaluated data warehouse platforms. This is a report that just came out recently, and Mark and his team, and we met with these analysts. They have a great stable of tech journalists and tech analysts, and we said, we're going to provide an update on everything that we have here, which we call kind of table stakes in terms of, if you're in this industry, you better have an MPP architecture. You better be able to have great data compression, great different features like projections and things like that. But what else are you doing around machine learning? We're talking about the in-database machine learning approach, the advantages we've offered in Vertica 10, and then also in the future, which Mark's going to cover a glimpse of that. Well, after looking at that, GigaOm said, you know what, you've hit all the check boxes. If you're closer to the middle, right in the center of that dot, you're a leader. So we are considered the leader in these evaluating these data warehouse platforms. We're awfully proud of it. Check out the complimentary report today. You can come visit the site. You'll also get the slides. You can click on the link when you get it in the PDF format. So my favorite part of the conversation and any presentation I give is around our customers, right? Mark and I actually have a customer advisory board today. We have them every quarter, at least a few times a year. It's a who's who of kind of analytically intensive organizations. You hear data-driven organizations. These are the ones that kind of coined that term. Everything from Uber, more than 14 million daily rides powering surge pricing globally. If you look at their architecture, that is a unified analytics warehouse. If there are petabyte volumes of data stored in Vertica, we're talking 4 or 5, there are 30 stored in something like HDFS, and being able to have flexible tools, meaning Vertica be able to analyze that data in place. It is kind of the model example of the unified analytical warehouse architecture. Trade Desk and Criteo, Vertica is very strong within ad tech. Particularly in Trade Desk, it's the largest analytical warehouse I've ever seen. This one running on AWS. 14 petabytes on 2 300-node clusters. And what they're able to do is 10 million ad auctions every second they've been able to process. An absolute competitive differentiator for them. Criteo, same thing in Europe. Cerner being one of the largest healthcare technology companies in the world, it was a massive displacement of an enterprise data warehouse. And then Intuit TurboTax, which is really popular in the States. Maybe some are using it in Europe. But the whole point of this is being a lot of clickstream analytics to personalize the experience. You have a lot of options when you're doing your taxes. We all pay taxes regardless of where you live, right? And some of us do it on our own. We work with an accountant or use software packages. Intuit TurboTax has been so successful in supporting personalized 50 million online tax filing experiences because of Vertica at the peak tax of the season. Being able to provide that personalized experience so that every step of the way you can provide the information, not get stuck, and go to an alternative. Many, many examples are across all kinds of industries. I'd encourage you to check out some of our case studies on our site. Or you can see our sister Vertica webcast series, and that's the Data Disruptor webcast series. We had a really great webcast last week with Domo. I'm sure many of you have heard of Domo and used that technology. Well, Domo OEMs Vertica. It's the embedded analytical engine underneath. It was a great webcast that discussed a lot around database automation, but also covered the COVID-19 tracker that Domo has put together, which is one of the most advanced trackers that I've seen, particularly in a data visualization environment. We've got many other customers throughout the year. They all lead to our annual conference. Definitely check that out. This is part of the End of the Hood webcast series. So again, we're going to go a little bit deeper, and Mark's going to speak in just a moment. We've got another one coming up next week, and it's around Kafka. So if you have an interest in using our Kafka connector or being able to load data very, very quickly into Vertica, I'd recommend you check out that webcast. Okay, so now let's talk about Vertica 10 and how we're delivering on what we're calling our big bets. So what are the trends that we've seen? And I touched on them in terms of how we got to this unified analytical warehouse, but we get questions all the time. Who are your competitors? Who do you compete with? We compete with a lot of different open source alternatives, traditional enterprise data warehouse as a service. But what we say is none can do the 3 things that we can do in being able to embrace these trends. Of course, there's massive data growth, right? But what we've seen is a Hadoop decline. I see many customers online and prospects from the areas of banking and telecommunications. Lots of investments in HDFS, and those investments will certainly not be wasted. Very cost-effective storage. What we're seeing is that more and more organizations are now moving that data, probably colder data, tearing that off to cloud object storage, right? So now the new data lakes are popping up on AWS and Google and also Azure with their blob storage, but being able to also store that on premises with S3 object storage vendors like Pure Storage. The cloud reality is that if you're spinning workloads up on the cloud and paying for the sip or paying for the drink, it totally makes sense, and it's a very attractive way to take on that endeavor. The challenge is that cloud economics are proving more costly. So many of our customers that say, hey, we want to move our workloads to the cloud, and they've already sunk their kind of capital expenditures and built out that IP. Well, they realize they go to the cloud, it's actually more expensive. So you really need to be careful in terms of, if you just think cloud is about cost, saving costs, that is not the case at all, and that we've seen it time and time again. Security and privacy concerns are growing, of course, but we're seeing as hybrid is becoming kind of the de facto deployment model, right? Whether you're running on multiple clouds or you're running in a hybrid environment, say for disaster recovery or business continuity initiatives, or machine learning, you want to train and score your models very quickly on the cloud and bring them up and score them on Vertica, say on AWS. You can do that in a very flexible way. And then finally, around machine learning production, we're seeing data science projects. They're not transitioning in production as quickly as we'd like to see them. And so we've taken on an approach of operationalizing machine learning, and Mark's going to dive into that. And people want predictive analytics now. So being able to handle those massive data growth volumes, whether you store the data in Vertica, store it in another area, we can reach out to it. A cloud reality becoming more around hybrid, and then operationalizing machine learning. So that's really what we have around Vertica 10, what we brought. Being able to unify the analytics, and Fuad mentioned that at the top, particularly for siloed data, being able to fit within that data pipeline, your data architecture, supporting multi-cloud and hybrid deployments. Real differentiators, bringing that cloud-optimized architecture to on-premises. So regardless of what your deployment mode that you choose, we have it all handled with Vertica. You don't need to choose. You can move your license from one environment to another. Incredibly flexible. Then finally, operationalize machine learning. So that's really about addressing machine learning at scale, no downsampling. Again, building those models on the full corpus of the data for accuracy. And then with Vertica, you always get unmatched and reliable performance at maximum scale. That's what Vertica is all about, will continue to be about. Okay, so hopefully that provides a little overview for you. If you weren't familiar with Vertica, I want to pass this off now to Mark. And Mark, why don't you dive into Vertica 10, which is really the topic that everyone's here to hear about.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Fuad, for the introduction. Great to have all the customers and people interested in Vertica on the line. So from here, I'm going to take us through slides about Vertica 10 and all the awesome work the team did a little bit deeper, and then we'll go into some of the futures like Jeff mentioned. So bear with me, and please put your questions in the chat as we go. I hope there's lots of questions. So some of the major highlights here for Vertica 10, which is available for download and available on all your major cloud marketplaces, GCP, AWS, and Azure, as a machine image to spin up easily. The major features here are we've expanded Eon Mode. So Eon Mode is now available on GCP as well as HDFS. So we'll talk more about Eon Mode and these deployment options and the plans moving forward from here. Vertica 10 also offers a click button transition of an enterprise mode database to an Eon Mode database. So it handles all the data, metadata, and can switch a database to Eon Mode. We've improved the database designer, and this is just the start of our vision for the database designer and autonomous optimization of performance for your database. And then in the machine learning and AI space, huge strides forward, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the next set of slides, but we integrated with TensorFlow. We added interoperability with PMML, and we've continued to build out our Python client, our Python SDKs, as well as we're going to talk about a new open source Python project. Not really new, actually. Fuad and team and our customers have been working on it for many years, but it's becoming a very important part of the Vertica story. And then finally, in theme with unifying the analytics is being able to access complex data types. So a lot of capabilities for maps, arrays, and structs in Parquet data, whether that's on S3 or HDFS, depending on what data lake technology you have or you're going to. And when I talk about S3, I'm talking about really the protocol, not necessarily Amazon Web Services S3. So let's get started. So first stop here is going to be a little bit of a double click deeper dive into Eon Mode before I go through some of the Eon Mode things around Vertica 10. For anyone who's not familiar, Vertica Eon Mode is a new deployment architecture for Vertica where we separate compute and storage and use a communal storage location, which could be Amazon S3, it's some type of object store or basically highly reliable, durable storage, because we are basically offloading the data safety and data management to the storage, the shared storage layer, which very much does change the game of how a data platform like Vertica can behave, how fast it can scale up and scale down, how easily it can isolate workloads and scale for concurrency and a bunch of different things. So Eon Mode you can learn a lot more about on Vertica.com, our documentation, other webinars. This is we GA'd Eon Mode in over 2 years ago in the spring of 2018. So this is hardened, tested, running at many customers, running in production. Like Jeff mentioned, our friends at the trade desk, they run 300 plus node Eon clusters on Amazon Web Services. So if you want to talk about scale, I think we can put the stake in the ground for this largest data warehouses. So what this does is it allows you to scale your infrastructure independently. So you can scale compute and storage separately. So you don't have to have one size fits all. You can have a use case that has a lot of data volume, but you only access the most recent 30 days of data. It's a UI that accesses it, so the user is boxed in for what they can ask for, and you only need a small amount of compute nodes. Okay, fine. Or you can have a smaller amount of data. You can have lots of compute nodes. Whatever you need to do for that use case, it gives you the flexibility to choose the appropriate amount of compute and storage instead of having direct attached storage and having to just keep everything in the local storage. It also keeps your, well, actually, before I head in that direction, let me just follow the slide to keep it easy for the audience. What you can do with Eon Mode, now that these compute and storage is separate, you can isolate the workloads. So you can have subclusters, which are sets of compute nodes dedicated to different workloads. So you can have a set of compute nodes doing ETL, a set of compute nodes doing dashboarding queries, and a set of compute nodes doing ad hoc, long-running machine learning queries, and they don't step on each other. They can actually have heterogeneous compute. So if you're on Amazon Web Services, you can choose different type of EC2 nodes for different type of your workloads. So this really enables multi-tenancy and a bunch of different common use cases around like chargeback, like this department needs their workload run and they need it on this many nodes, and we want to know how much that costs so we can basically charge back. So isolating workloads is a huge part of the story. You still have all your traditional resource pools and workload management here. It's all present, but it gives you a new paradigm for workload isolation. From there, it really simplifies database operations because the primary copy of your data and your catalog are in the shared storage. They're safe at all times. The compute nodes can go away. You can turn them on and off. You can scale up and scale down. You can handle catastrophic events better if if you lose all your compute nodes, that's okay. And from there, when you scale up and scale down, some of the tasks become metadata operations. So like Eon Mode doesn't have to rebalance the data. You just have to rebalance the subscriptions to where the data is on Amazon. So when you're dealing with really large volumes of data, it's much faster to just add compute nodes and have the catalog tell the new compute nodes where the data is, instead of having to rebalance, a 200 terabyte database. And then finally, you can actually hibernate the whole database. So you can just tell Vertica, like, I'm not using it for the weekend, or I'm not using, this project's paused, and you can just hibernate the database into the S3 bucket. The entire state is kept, all your data catalog, everything's good, no compute nodes up, which is where most of the money is spent, especially if you're on a public cloud. And the database is just hibernated. And when you're ready to come back to it, you can revive it, and the database is also available on-prem. So this is not just about public clouds. We're offering this architecture and innovation on both public clouds as well as private clouds, private deployments, on your storage, fast object store, great complementary technology to Vertica, and you can run Eon Mode and get that. Additional, private on-prem deployment. This could work there as well, but most of what we're doing here is for all of our customers that have very large data lakes, significant deployments of HDFS in their private environments. You can use HDFS protocol as the path for your communal storage. And again, all the benefits that I described of Eon Mode are present here as well. There's no functional difference between these deployments and what you choose for storage. Now, when you get into Eon Mode on-prem, you definitely have to be cognizant of direct attached storage, and the infrastructure of that environment is going to matter. It could vary more than what we see in the public clouds. So Eon Mode, as you can see, has been a huge success, a huge innovation, and it's been amazing to see how much value it's unlocked for our customers. One of the things that we also added in Vertica 10 is the ability to switch an enterprise mode database to an Eon Mode database. So a common use case here is you have a workload that you want to move to AWS. You upgrade your database to Vertica 10, you back it up to S3, and then you turn on an enterprise mode database in Amazon, and then you can use the migration tool to switch that database to Eon Mode. So prior to this, it was a little bit trickier. So this is a great win to simplify the migration to the public cloud or to Eon Mode, whatever deployment you choose. So complex data types, this is, we made a big stride forward in Vertica 10, adding a lot more capabilities for complex data types. We have been working on this for a while. We started to add small features in the end of the Vertica 9, 9.3, 9.3.1, and we still have, we're still working on this. We have more work to do, but Vertica 10 was kind of a milestone release for complex data types in Parquet. This is really important. A lot of people have complex data types in their data pipelines. There's a lot of complex data types present in the data lakes in Parquet file formats, and it's very common for the data pipelines to have these nested structures, arrays, and maps, especially coming off of these web apps and IoT use cases. So there's a lot of different ways to handle complex data types, and what we've been working on here is basically kind of strong complex data types. So, you know, you can take a bunch of nested JSON or Parquet, and you can just bring it into Vertica in a flex table, a VMAP, which that works. You do sacrifice some of your compression and query performance. What we've been working on with complex data types in Parquet is to leave the data structures the way they are and query them in place with performance. So that's the key here, is we don't want to explode them if we don't have to. We want to basically do it in a high performance query fashion like Vertica is good at. The last thing I'll say on complex data types before I move on here is we also added one-dimensional arrays and sets into the Vertica native format in Vertica tables. So there's a little bit of bonus beyond the slides here and beyond what the team planned to actually include some basic complex type support in our native format, and we'll continue that journey. From there, I'm going to talk a little bit about the machine learning process. And Jeff mentioned, you know, our goals are to kind of operationalize machine learning, right? Like machine learning and AI and data science shouldn't be separate environments, shouldn't be on single node machines, shouldn't be hard to reproduce. And it shouldn't be hard for data scientists to get the data that they need. And it shouldn't be hard for business people to understand why the machine learning algorithms predicted something. So to solve all those things, you really have to bring the data science, machine learning communities together with the enterprise data management and BI communities and work together on one platform with all the data and the production data not downsampled, not duplicated, not stale. So Vertica offers a great starting point for this journey. We have built-in functions into the Vertica platform to handle the entire data scientist workflows, from data loading to data quality, data prep, data transformations. We can do all of your data prep around data processing, imbalanced data processing, random sampling, normalizing the data, data type handling, some of the really time-consuming stuff in the data science space. But from there, we also have all of your common algorithms built in. We have all your the functions you would expect to evaluate how good these models are, area under the curves and error rates, confusion matrix, R-squared, lift tables. And then finally, when new data arrives in your production data platform, you can score these algorithms. You can do the predictions and serve that right back up to your audience via SQL. So it's nice and easy. For Vertica 10, we added some cool new features. Both of these features are focused on interoperability with the ecosystem. The first one is supporting PMML, which is a standard kind of markup language to move machine learning models between tools. So this handles import and export. This is for moving things between Spark and Vertica or SPSS or some other machine learning tool. So anything that's PMML export, then you could import to Vertica, and then Vertica can also export PMML. So if you have use cases, use cases where you want to do the training in Vertica but the evaluation somewhere else, you can use export. In addition to PMML, we added TensorFlow integration. This is just import, so this is one directional. So TensorFlow is unsupervised, really cool technology from Google, specialized, really capable in neural nets and unsupervised machine learning. So here you're basically using TensorFlow to do the model training on GPUs, maybe in a public cloud, maybe not. And then you're importing that model into the data warehouse for scoring, for prediction on the full corpus of your data on the newest data that arrives into your through your data pipelines. So again, operationalizing that ML, doing it in the database. When you import a model into Vertica, it's a database object. We keep track of all aspects of it, when it was run, where it came from, what user, all the things you would expect. You get a model management platform here too. So whether you're importing TensorFlow models, importing PMML models from other tools, building your own models in Python and bringing them in through the SDK, using our in-database machine learning algorithms, there's lots of ways to do machine learning, but all of those in the database now become models managed by Vertica. So you can see all the metadata associated with them. They're objects in the database. You get a model management platform basically out of the box. So in the machine learning space, I mean, we truly have built something special here. You get all the enterprise grade scale and performance and infrastructure of Vertica. You get the security, the efficiency, the speed, and you can bring your data science workloads to this platform. You don't have to downsample data. You can have the workload management. It's going to enable lots of data scientists, the entire team working on the data at the same time. And Eon Mode even gives you another level of concurrency and workload management to give the data science team their own subcluster to do their work, and then turn it off when they're not using it. It's also all via SQL, although more and more, and you'll see where we're headed, where the data scientist community likes to and is comfortable with Python. So we've really been doubling down on Python over the last couple years and releases with the open source Python client, improving our Python SDK, because people should be able to use the interface that they're comfortable with and take advantage of the MPP platform and distributed computing engine of Vertica that supports all the enterprise features you need around security, workload management, authentication, access policies, and everything like that. So. And then finally, the last thing I'll say on this Vertica's unique space in ML, I mean, this is a big data platform. Vertica can scale out hugely. We use memory and we auto disk built. So like you get the best of both worlds. Like when you're training machine learning models, we'll pull things into memory, we'll iterate on it, but we can also spill the disk. So there's no issues in how big of a job you have, and as a user, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think like, how big is my Spark cluster? Does this single node of Python is it big enough to run my job? No, Vertica is going to take all the compute nodes, all the memory, and all the storage, and efficiently use it to get your job done, and not only get your job done, but get everyone's job done, in parallel. So this is a newer open source project that the team's been working on, and you're going to see and hear a lot more about it. It's called Vertica Pi. This is an interface library that you can pull into your Jupyter notebook, interact with your data in Python, and then it basically pushes down all the processing to Vertica. So I'm super excited about this, and I know our customers are super excited about this, and I'm going to ask Fuad to jump in a little bit more here and tell the audience about some of the customer use cases.
Thanks, Mark. So the idea here is really to bridge the two worlds together. So the Vertica and its scalability, and it has been proven with a lot of large petabyte scale customers, and the flexibility that Python is bringing. And what we have built here is something for any data scientist in the call, something better than scikit-learn or pandas, which has been, let's say, enhanced with a lot of functions and even analytical functions that are embedded in Vertica to create, I would say, the first in-database data science tool. Okay, and we decided to make it open source. It's available in GitHub. You have the link there, and actually it covers all the life cycle from data ingestion up to data exploration. There is also a lot of visual charts there to explore the data, and then you can do the data preparation, and then you can do the prediction inside Vertica. All available in Jupyter notebooks or Jupyter Labs. But the idea here is that we don't want customers to move the data out of Vertica, because there are a lot of customers facing a lot of pain, moving the data from traditional data warehouses to bring it to some in-memory tools. And we know all the limitations of in-memory tools. So here, nothing run in memory, everything in the database, leveraging the speed of Vertica. And if customers still need some of the algorithms that we don't have, well, you can still connect with third-party tools via like TensorFlow or via PMML, like Mark said at the beginning. We are happy that because we have now a couple of customers, very large customers that are trialing them. We have a large bank in France. Now they are doing a lot of predictive analytical use cases, and they are also doing text search inside this API. We have a large telco company in Turkey. They are working with a lot of hundreds of terabytes doing CDR analytics and DDR analytics. And we have also a new customer in Southeast Europe, and actually we just started actually this week, and they are doing like a new project for recommendation engine for online TV content. So they are building a recommendation engine with this tool. So it's a very cool tool. I really encourage you to go and check it. And as Mark said, we want to be the unified analytical warehouse. As you can imagine here, through the presentation, you understand that Vertica is the data warehouse, Vertica is the data lake, and Vertica can cover any use case for data science. Could be use cases for pattern matching, building heat maps, just data exploration, asking questions and getting real-time answers so you can ask the next questions. Churn analytics, time series, binary classification, cross-validation. We want this to be the single platform where business users, business analysts, data scientists, statisticians, they bring their own tool, they bring their own libraries, and they just work with the data in Vertica without moving the data inside from outside Vertica. With this, Mark, it's back to you.
Okay, thank you, Fuad. And I'm as passionate about this as you. Before I joined the Vertica team, and got into the data warehousing and database space, I was working a lot with data science teams. And I think it's just so important to bring these two worlds together. That's where we're going to see a lot of value created. So I mentioned the next generation database designer, and I have a bunch more to cover here. We're wrapping up through Vertica 10 here and have to get on to a couple of future slides. So basically, we've simplified the API significantly for the database designer and reduced the resources it uses. The goal here is to get this something that people can use more frequently on their production systems, make sure their projections are optimized for their workload. So what's next? This is what Jeff mentioned. This is why we put the confidential disclaimer in the front of the slide deck. Just we're going to go into a couple roadmap, high-level things that we're working on. So this is the future. So this is at the core engine side of Vertica. I'm not going to share too much details here, but we're working on a new version of our execution engine. So you basically have your optimizer that plans your query, your execution that runs the query, the execution engine, and these are topics that we always kind of continue to work on. This is how Vertica maintains its performance and scale story. So we're always following the best in academic, best in industry, making sure that Vertica's execution engine and optimizer are the best. So we're working on a new version, which is showing some very exciting results around data sorting. We're expanding our Eon Mode deployment. So I know this is always a question that comes up. You can see what we have today, what's available in 10. On the public cloud platforms, we're Azure and then Alibaba Cloud are the next two. So that kind of rounds out the public cloud platform. And we're expanding with our our partners that have on-premise technologies or other technologies. Sorry, I was just checking if there was a slide after this one on this. So this is enabling expansion. We put together a partner program for S3 protocol partners, or partners that have technologies that are in the S3 protocol. We'll likely do the same potentially with other protocols, but right now we're focused on S3. So this is basically getting Vertica Eon Mode available on other S3 compatible technologies. And if you have something that you're interested in, please reach out. We have a team in our partner engineering department that's working on this. So Vertica has been and is available through the major public cloud platform marketplaces to provision all with our GUI and the management console. We're adding Alibaba, so that's the next one. The management console, we are focusing on automation, ease of use. The screenshots aren't in here, but we also are revamping the UI, the information architecture, and really putting a big emphasis on the user experience. You can expect to see some more proactive reporting and alerts out of the management console. Subcluster management is coming, and some more features around Eon Mode in the management console. Another hot topic, you'll hear people talk about cloud native, containers and orchestration come up frequently. We do have a handful of customers that are Vertica experts that are running containerized and orchestrated environments or testing it. We've done a bunch of testing in our lab. Eon Mode is a very interesting enabler for this because the compute and storage are separated. The data is in the shared storage. You can definitely envision a world where the compute side of the database is containerized. So this is an area we're definitely interested in talking to our customers more about. We plan to, there's a lot of aspects to this. There's just best practices in documentation of how to do it if you want to do it. There is server-side installer admin tools agent changes that the team's looking at and working on, and then there's actual Docker images and Kubernetes operators and Terraform providers and all the different tools that are common in this space. So I think you expect to see more in the future here, for sure. Even beyond that, we're looking at, as we bring the data science community together and the BI community together, we're leveraging Python. Data visualization and explorations becoming very important. The users, the data scientists, the business analysts, and users of the data need to be able to explore and visualize their data. So we are looking at things, especially in the Vertica Pi project, of how we could add, more access to the data in a visual manner. So as we wrap up here, I just want to tell you how Vertica is committed to supporting the changes in the market, the changes in your data platforms and your environments. And I think, we have a long-standing history of taking the Vertica platform and keeping its core engine the best world-class performance, but also, staying in tune with the ecosystem. So if it's Kafka, if it's Spark, if it's Hadoop, if it's public clouds, the journey into data science, the journey into Kubernetes and orchestration and containers, we are committed to basically embrace all this innovation and make it available to our Vertica users and integrate it with our platform in a way that makes sense. So, don't move the data, use a unified analytics engine, hybrid, public cloud, on-prem, between your data lake. I think it's a great story, a great opportunity to bring a lot of value to your company. So Vertica, please give it a look if you haven't tried it. It's available on public cloud marketplaces, vertica.com trial. You can get our community edition, deploy up to 3 nodes, up to 1 terabyte. There's no time limit here, no license requirements, and it's easy to upgrade to a commercial license if you want support and you're going to go live with a use case. So please check out our community edition. And then the last plug here is for Vertica Academy. So academy.vertica.com, free self-paced training available online. This is excellent. We launched it last year. You can get certificates and learn a lot about how to use our product. All right, back to you, Fuad. Let's do some Q&A here. I think we have about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, thank you, Mark and Jeff. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. Let's ask with the ones that came just now. So the first one, Vertica is currently available on Azure, but not in Eon Mode. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Eon Mode is the next stop for Eon Mode is Azure. So we just announced GCP in Vertica 10, and the teams are working on Azure. So that will be the next stop. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Mark. The next question is, does Eon Mode provide the same features in AWS and GCP? Is it the same Vertica software, the same features as on-prem?
Yeah, so great question. And I mean, the simple answer is yes. So there's only one Vertica binary. There's only one piece of software, whether you're running enterprise mode or Eon Mode, or whether you're running on the public cloud or on-prem. But Eon Mode is the same. So you have the same features and functionality in Eon Mode on AWS as well as GCP, and Eon Mode on-prem. So, you know, the only thing with on-prem is you don't tend to have as much compute flexibility as you do in the public cloud. So in the public clouds, it's pretty easy to, you know, grab this instance type and then switch and try a different instance type. And, you know, you can go to Amazon and say, I want 20 more compute servers. And, you know, that's the only thing on-prem is you don't tend to see the actual agility on the compute side as you might have on the public cloud. But that, you know, that's not always true. Some people have a lot of private, a very large private data centers. So all the features are the same.
Good. Thank you, Mark. Another question, how much it takes for Vertica to certify and support a new object store vendor? Is there an API that is publicly available, or this is like something that's only owned by Vertica?
Yeah, so right now there is not API publicly available for a customer to integrate their own protocol, but we are working on S3. We have a partner program for S3 object store vendors. So that is available. If you tell us the vendor that you're interested in, we can work with them. We're working with the Dell ECS team and the Scality teams right now. And we're also just getting started with Hitachi and the NetApp team. So there's a lot of people that we can work with here on the S3 side. We have discussed exposing the SDK for. So I mean, there is an API here. Like when we extend the Vertica integrations, we just do it through the SDK. We just don't publicly document it, expose it. We have discussed that. I'm not sure if we're going to do that yet. But we may in the future, TBD. We do see a lot of people asking for other things outside of S3, and that's where it gets interesting. So like we did HDFS. Azure is actually different, right? That's not S3. People are asking for NFS, and there's others. So our mission is to make Vertica available on whatever storage protocol and platform our customers want to use it. So we'll do our best to do that.
Exactly. Thank you, Mark. A question on complex data types. Can we use complex data types, so arrays, maps, with external tables using Parquet and Orc data?
So 100% external tables in Parquet is what we've been mostly targeting as the use case. I did mention we added some capabilities into the Vertica tables. one-dimensional arrays and sets. We haven't done anything with ORC data. So that's a feature gap right now. We have been getting some requests about that. So if you see the future is still ORC data for your organization, or you have an interest here, please let your account team know, and it will get back to the product and engineering teams. We definitely have spent more time in the last 12 months on Parquet data. That seems to be what we're seeing most of, and that market continues to evolve. So please let us know.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Another question: can you share more about data visualization future options?
So not much to say. We'll see where we go. I know we're looking at some options for charting and visualization in our Vertica Pi project, which is an open source project. We're not trying to build a BI tool or a data science workbench. Like, those are completely different kind of markets, and we have a lot of partners that we work with, and we'll continue to work with there. But there is a nice story for having some simple data visualization kind of access. So stay tuned. I think we'll see what the Vertica team comes up with. I don't have anything to share beyond that.
Okay, good, Mark. A question just came in now, so I'm prioritizing it. Can you just sketch migration path options from Vertica 9 on-prem to cloud?
Yeah, so Vertica 9 on-prem, you basically, well, there's a few different migration options and paths, and it would be best to talk to your solution architect on Fuad's team and Fuad. But some of these, you have backup to S3, right? So you can basically back your database up to S3 and then restore a database in the public cloud. And then from there, you can go from Vertica 9 to Vertica 10. From there, you can go from Vertica 10 in enterprise mode to Eon mode. All pretty simple. We'd be happy to help you do it. So that's probably the most logical steps I would take, but you should definitely talk to Fuad and his team.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. So for the person who asked the question, you have my email address, so fuad.tiban@vertica.com. Just drop me an email, and I will be happy to guide you through the step-by-step process. Yeah, I will be happy. Another question, Mark. I know we are almost close to finish. How do you plan to support Vertica Pi in the future? Is there a subscription model?
Yeah, so our plans are to keep Vertica Pi open source, and it's tied to the Vertica database. So as a Vertica customer, it's basically going to be an open source component that you get as part of the platform. Is our current thinking. It's right now we're ramping the teams to be able to better support this open source project. The teams are so if you're familiar with our open source Python client, we have that full CI/CD community. Or we support it, we build features on it, but it's also set up as a real open source project with full maintenance by a Vertica team and CI/CD, so you can make pull requests, build and test your enhancement, and then merge it back to the project. So we're setting up Vertica Pi to be the same kind of setup, and that means there's going to be a bunch of people on the Vertica team very familiar with this, from our engineering team to our support teams. So we're moving in a direction to be able to better support people using Vertica Pi. Today it's basically what we would consider like best effort. It's not commercially supported, but we have many people that are capable of supporting it, and we're formalizing the open source project, and we'll continue to go further from there.
Thank you, Mark, and we are just on time. So thanks everybody today for joining the call and for the great participation. If we are not able to answer your question today, we will respond directly via email. As I said before, please note that there will be a reply available later on, plus a PDF copy of the slides that you can download. We will be also sharing a survey shortly. If you have 2 minutes, I really appreciate your feedback. And it takes 2 minutes just to fill in. Again, thank you for attending the call today, and this concludes our event. Have a great day.